It's time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online for all your website needs at sonicwebstudios.com. The Mike Wagner Show brings you interesting people doing interesting things all across the globe. Now, let's get started on the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. Also on Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can also listen, click, invite, like, and share a page with others. Check out past interviews and more. You can also download and listen to Mike Wagner Show at SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and watch the interview on YouTube. We're here with actor, director, comedian, and producer for over 50 years in the Los Angeles area. He appeared in Breaking Bad. He's currently in it. He also appeared on Matlock, Seinfeld, Escape from Alcatraz, Home Alone, Billy Madison, and many, many movies. And, of course, you may have seen him, but you may not know his name. But once you take a look at some certain characteristics, like a homeless person or a police officer or just whatever, okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, the most interesting man in Hollywood today, and of course, he also studied with Frank Langella and Carl Gottlieb, the legendary Larry Hankin. Larry, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Cool. I hope I can match that introduction, but cool, man. I'm fine. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Of course,
Okay.
I'm not necessarily Breaking Bad, but everything's good here. So you've been an actor, director, comedian, and producer for over 50 years. You've appeared in a numerous number of movies, films, TVs, and you're currently in Breaking Bad, the very hot series on HBO. And, of course, you studied at Syracuse University of Frank Langella and legendary Carl Gottlieb. You also were part of the committee in San Francisco, and you also been with the Second City in Chicago. But first, before we get all to that, tell us how you got started in show business.
How did I get started? Wow. Well, by mistake, I guess. I graduated Syracuse as an industrial designer, and my best friend all through college was Carl Gottlieb, who wrote Jaws. Mm-hmm. So we were hanging out together, and he wanted to be a writer, and I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to be an industrial designer. I just wanted to not do anything. So he said, let's go get an apartment together. We'll be roommates in Greenwich Village, because that's where he wanted to go. I didn't care. I said, fine. And so I was sweeping floors and bars while he was writing and reviewing movies. And he was... and then I would hang out at night at the coffee houses, and there was a lot of Monday night open mics. And I thought, hey, I can do that. I was a funny guy in high school. I can, and I was a funny guy in college. So I can do this. So I kept on getting up on the stage at all these Monday nights all over. Every other store was a coffee house in those days in the 60s. And so I just worked the Monday nights, and then I was awful, man. I was so awful. And to this day, I don't know what kept me getting back on the stage, except I thought, I can do it better next Monday. That was really all I had to go on. I can do it better next Monday. And I finally started to get a routine going. In about a couple of months, I was opening for Woody Allen, which is kind of cool. And that's how I got into show business. And I got a manager. I got his manager. And then I started booking stand-up. I was doing stand-up. I was opening for Woody and Miles Davis and the Kingston Trio and Playboy clubs. And finally, but I was very hip. I was like... hip with quotes around it. like Lenny Bruce. I was kind of Lenny Bruce kind of thing. I was watching Lenny Bruce. He would come and see me, and I couldn't take it. Violence. I mean, people would come at me with beer bottles upside down in their fists, and they'd say, "Get off the stage. We want to hear the Kingston Trio." I mean, that's crazy, man. So I went to my manager, who was Woody's at the time, and I said, "Hey, look, I'm a middle-class Jewish kid. I can't take this anger out there." And I was doing good in some college. I was opening for Love and Spoonful. We were touring the United States. And in some venues, some college venues, I get standing ovations and stuff. And in other ones, they'd throw things at me. That's unbelievable to be on stage and have people pull the armrests off of the theater seats and throw them up at the stage at me because I was cursing or talking about pot. It was wild. So he said, "Well, why don't you go and join Second City? They own the theater, and and they can throw these people out if they're booing," which they never did. And I joined Second City, which was kind of cool. And then went to the committee, which was an offshoot of Second City. So that got me to the West Coast in San Francisco, and from there you then start to drift down to L.A. and start doing sitcoms and stuff like that. And boom, I'm in show business. So it wasn't a plan. I never really wanted to do anything. But acting seemed to be, and doing funny things seemed to be cool. So that's what I did. And it turned out to be okay.
It sounds.
So there you go.
It sounds amazing too. And you worked with Woody Allen as your first. So what was it like working with Woody Allen? Not as strange, weird, or cool as you might think. It was just he was a guy, I was a guy. We were doing the same thing, so I didn't think. Well, first of all, he wasn't Woody Allen at the time. He was a guy named Woody Allen who was a stand-up comedian, and I would open for him. And he was starting to get famous as I opened for him because we both had the same manager. But he was always silent. I mean, he wasn't a funny guy, off stage. He was quite serious. He would just sit, in the green room or, waiting to go on, and he would just be quiet. I would see him up at the office at our manager's office when I was up there. And we hardly spoke. But when people asked, when he was being interviewed, I was never being interviewed. But when he was being interviewed, they would ask, what do you think about the guy who's opening for you? He would always say, hey, he's a funny guy. He always gave me my props, whatever. He was very kind. No, Larry's really funny. So that was about it. And then when I finally joined Second City, and when I stopped opening for him, and I could get gigs to open for like Miles Davis or Kingston Trio, I lost touch with him, and then he became Woody Allen, and that was like amazing. And then he started making movies, but I wasn't a fan of his, because it's like painters. I know painters are very competitive. He was a comedian and I was a comedian, and sometimes he was funny and sometimes he wasn't, according to me. The audiences loved him. Mm-hmm. But we played to the same audience. I mean, I opened for him, so I was playing to the same audiences. And I would get, good, the manager or he wouldn't let me open for him if I wasn't being successful. I mean, to have a comedian die before another comedian comes on is a really hard thing to do. Because your audience is kind of tired and down. So, I was holding up my end. And then when I went on my own, it started to get hairy because the audiences, for the Love and Spoonful, they were very particular. I either wowed them or they would pull the actual armrests off of the auditorium seats and throw them at me. I was pulled off. It was like being
Lenny Bruce. I was pulled off the stage by the police in Washington University. They called the cops. And Northwestern, the dean and a priest and a police captain met us at the lobby and said they got a report from Washington University that they had a filthy mouth comedian opening for the Love and Spoonful, and they wanted the priest to check my monologue, which cool. The Love and Spoonful's manager handled it, and since they were used to being booed, I mean, it was rock and roll, man, so and they were rock and roll managers, and they knew about crowds and mothers and fathers not liking the music and all that. So they handled it beautifully. They told me to hide up in my room, and they would get rid of the dean, the cop, and the priest. And they did. And they said, but if he starts to curse on stage, we're going to pull him off the stage. They didn't want me to go on at all. So that's the fact that I opened for them. But when I got on the stage, I didn't change anything. And the Love and Spoonful didn't want me to change it. He said, no, man, do your act, man. We love it. Go, man. So I went out and I did what I did at Washington, and it worked great. Everybody loved it. So it was a what do they call it? A nothing burger. I hear that thrown around. So,
a nothing burger, yeah.
A nothing burger. Yeah. I mean, it didn't happen, but in Washington University, it did. They pulled me off the stage. They had 10 cops come up on the stage, 5 from each side, so I couldn't run off the stage. I mean, it was ridiculous. Love and Spoonful were backstage laughing their asses off. They thought it was the funniest thing in the world. But all they did was just take me off the stage. I mean, they couldn't bust me. I wasn't doing anything untoward. So they just took me off the stage, and then the Love and Spoonful went on, and they left me alone.
I guess believing in magic just takes on a very different meaning, and sounds like you had a really good relationship with John Sebastian.
Yeah, but like I said, the Love and Spoonful, we were all friends. I mean, off stage we were friends. We knew each other from San Francisco, because when I was in the committee, the Love and Spoonful would always, when they played San Francisco, they would come to see the show and hang out. So we were friends, and then they said, hey, we're going on the road. Why don't you come with us? You're a stand-up comedian, too, not only an improviser. So why don't you open for us? I think they might have seen my act in the Village or something. But anyway, that was kind of cool. And then from there, I went back into the committee up in San Francisco, and then kind of went down to do sitcoms mainly for a long time. I did, every sitcom there was. And that got kind of boring. So I started to write my own stuff. Little film shorts. I got an Academy Award nomination for one of my film shorts. So I started to get on a film short kick, and I didn't want to act anymore. I didn't want to audition anymore. Let me put it that way. That's a very, in some instances, it's a very, to me, a demeaning. Well, I had done so many, and I had auditioned for so many and done so many sitcoms mainly, and then a couple of movies and stuff, that I started to get a handle on it, and then I understood the auditioning process. So I started auditioning the auditioners. Like, if they weren't, helping me to help them, if they weren't helping me figure out how to read the part, or they would give me too many instructions. If they were just being assholes, then I would have an attitude problem. My agent at the time would get phone calls every once in a while, not a lot, but every once in a while, saying, "What's wrong with your client? Or what's the matter, Larry? What's wrong with him?" "Oh, I think he has an attitude problem," they would say to him. I would get these calls from my agent. "What did you do with the audition?" "Nothing. I auditioned." "What?" They call. They say you have an attitude problem. "Oh, that." Well, they were idiots. So, I let them know that I thought they were idiots, that was all. But they seemed to not like that. So, okay, I'll cool it a little bit.